If you want to staff a single, like, 24/7 security analyst seat in your organization, how many people do you think you actually need to hire?
Yeah, most people would probably just do some quick napkin math, right? Like, okay, 3 8-hour shifts, maybe add a fourth person for weekend coverage.
Right, exactly. But the actual number, you need 6.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, the math behind enterprise cybersecurity procurement is just, well, it's fundamentally broken. It's full of these massive blind spots like that. And today, we're going to show you how to fix it.
Because the problem really is that IT leaders are forced to operate in this total financial black box.
Yeah.
I mean, the upfront cost you see on a vendor quote is just rarely the total cost of ownership.
It never is.
Right. And the time spent just trying to get a transparent answer from a sales rep, it's this massive, completely unrecorded tax on your entire engineering team.
Oh, absolutely. So we are going to extract the hidden math of tech procurement. And to do this, we're diving into a stack of documentation and a suite of 10 free micro tools provided by our sponsor, sourcing.cisomarketplace.com.
Which are super helpful, by the way.
They really are. And you, listening right now, you can actually find the links to all 10 of these tools right in the description of this deep dive. They're designed to give you defensible data before you ever even take a sales call.
Which, that fundamentally shifts the balance of power. When you actually know the underlying math, when you understand exactly how a vendor arrived at their pricing and where all those hidden costs are buried, you stop being a passive participant in a sales pitch.
Right, you become an active architect of your own budget.
Exactly.
But before we look at the tools that save capital, we really need to examine how this CISO Marketplace process reclaims the one resource a security team can literally never buy back, which is time.
Time is everything.
It is. And the documentation focuses heavily on eliminating something they call discovery theater.
Oh man, anyone who has ever bought enterprise software knows discovery theater all too well.
Yeah.
It's that grueling process of getting on a call with the vendor's business development rep, explaining your entire network architecture, and then, getting on a second call with an account executive, only to be asked, so tell me about your environment all over again.
It is agonizing. It's honestly like going to the emergency room with a broken arm, but having to explain how you broke it to the receptionist, and then the intake nurse, the billing coordinator.
Yeah, and the attending physician before anyone even bothers to look at an x-ray.
Exactly. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
But CISO Marketplace uses this 4-step sourcing protocol to bypass that entirely. So step 1 is literally just writing a brief. It's 8 fields.
Super simple.
Yeah. Company size, current stack, the specific problem you're trying to solve. Done.
And then the mechanism of step 2 is where the efficiency really starts to kick in. A human advisor actually pre-qualifies that brief.
Okay.
They validate the architectural needs and then curate 2 or 3 suitable suppliers based on actual market fit, not just, who happens to be running the most ads this quarter. And they actually provide the rationale for why those specific suppliers were chosen for you.
Which leads us to step 3, which the documentation calls the SE pre-flight. So when you have your second call, you aren't meeting with some quota-carrying sales rep.
Thank goodness.
Right. You are meeting with a certified solutions engineer from the advisor network. Like, these are professionals holding CISP or CCIE credentials. They bring decades of actual channel engineering experience.
Yeah. They essentially act as a buyer-side procurement architect. So they handled the deeply technical architecture translation on your behalf.
Wow. Okay.
So instead of you spending 3 weeks educating a vendor on your compliance constraints, this engineer just translates your environment into highly specific vendor-quotable specifications.
So the output isn't just another marketing deck.
No, not at all. It is a technically validated quote.
That's huge. But I do want to test the mechanics of this a bit, because the documentation explicitly states that this service is completely free for the buyer. And it says these engineers are compensated by the suppliers through standard channel residuals. Wait, if the suppliers are ultimately the ones paying the bills here, how can we trust that these engineers truly remain vendor-agnostic and on the buyer's side?
That's a great question, and it really all comes down to the incentive structure.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about a direct sales rep at a vendor. They have a quarterly quota, right? They absolutely must sell you their specific firewall or software platform right now, this quarter, or they lose their bonus.
Right, they're desperate to close.
Exactly. But the advisor network engineers, they don't carry any vendor-specific quotas. They get paid a residual regardless of which curated option you end up selecting.
Oh, I see. So the financial pressure is just totally removed from the immediate transaction.
Precisely. Their incentive is aligned purely with long-term architectural fit. Because, if they architect a solution that totally fails to integrate with your stack and you end up ripping it out 12 months
You
later,
lose the money.
exactly, that residual compensation just vanishes. They only win if the solution actually survives and works in your environment.
That makes a ton of sense. The pressure shifts from closing the quarter to actually solving the deployment. And again, just a reminder for you listening that totally streamlined sourcing protocol is available at sourcing.cisomarketplace.com.
Definitely worth checking out.
For sure. Now, I want to pivot to the first batch of microtools, starting with security operations, because we really need to unpack that 6-person math from the intro.
Yes, the SOC build versus buy calculator. It targets probably the most common miscalculation in long-term security planning.
Which is?
The belief that building an in-house security operations center is just, a matter of hiring a few analysts.
Right, but when you look at the raw data, maintaining a single 24/7 seat requires 5.8 full-time employees. Walk me through how we get from 3 8-hour shifts to nearly 6 full salaries.
Well, it forces you to calculate human reality against an 8,760-hour calendar year. First, you have paid time off and sick days. Then you have mandatory continuous training because, frankly, a security analyst whose skills degrade is a massive liability.
Oh, absolutely.
And crucially, you have shift overlap. The 30 to 60 minutes where the incoming shift needs to be briefed by the outgoing shift on active threats.
Oh, right. You can't just clock out mid-attack.
Exactly.
Right.
So when you subtract all of those non-productive hours, keeping just one chair continuously warm requires massive redundancy.
And the calculator establishes this really strict break-even point. It shows that unless an organization is defending roughly 34,000 endpoints, building a 24/7 SOC in-house is mathematically more expensive than just buying managed detection and response or MDR from a third party.
Yeah, that's the threshold.
So if you are under 34,000 endpoints, outsourcing is simply cheaper.
And that specific data point is vital for an IT leader walking into a board meeting. I mean, you aren't just waving your hand saying, hey, we need to outsource this.
Right.
You are presenting a mathematical floor based on actual operational reality.
Yeah, it's defensible, and we see a really similar pricing trap exposed in the Endpoint License Planner, specifically regarding mixed asset fleets.
Oh, definitely.
Because vendors, they aggressively market their baseline workstation prices. Let's say it's $70 a seat. But an enterprise environment is rarely just standard issue laptops, right?
No, almost never. And this is where budgets totally unravel. Workstation licenses are basically the loss leader.
Ah, okay.
The tool exposes that server licenses typically cost 3 to 5 times more than that baseline workstation price. And furthermore, if you're running cloud workloads like containerized applications or Kubernetes clusters, those licenses cost roughly 3 times the baseline.
Wow. So if a team is budgeting for 2,000 endpoints and 200 of those happen to be servers, the cost for just those 200 servers could literally equal the cost of the other 1,800 laptops combined.
Exactly.
So if you don't normalize that pricing across your specific asset mix before you ask for a quote, your budget is essentially fiction.
It is. You're planning based on the vendor's absolute best-case marketing scenario rather than your actual real-world infrastructure footprint.
Which brings up the firewall throughput sizing tool. This is such a brilliant visualization of how spec sheets obscure reality.
It really is.
It's like buying a firewall based on the manufacturer's stated throughput is like buying a sports car because the brochure says it can do 200 miles per hour. But the moment you turn on the air conditioning and the radio and the headlights, the maximum speed just plummets to 40 miles per hour.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Because vendors measure raw throughput in these completely sterile lab environments with all the heavy security features turned off.
Right. And the tool breaks down the penalties.
Yeah.
So if you enable SSL inspection, which is non-negotiable now since the vast majority of modern web traffic is encrypted, raw throughput drops by 65%.
Just right off the top.
Right. And if you turn on intrusion prevention systems, it drops another 30%. Sandboxing removes another 15%. So a firewall rated for 10 gigabits per second on the datasheet can easily choke at 2 gigabits per second in a real production environment.
Oh, easily. It happens all the time.
So are vendors intentionally hiding this 60 to 80% performance drop, or is it just industry standard physics that buyers willingly ignore?
Honestly, it's a combination of both. I mean, the physics are unavoidable, right? Decrypting, inspecting, and re-encrypting traffic in real time requires immense computational overhead.
Right, that makes sense.
However, the vendors totally understand that procurement often operates on a checklist mentality. If an RFP asks for a 10 gigabit firewall, the vendor is going to submit a device that hits 10 gigabits in a lab, knowing full well the buyer will experience an 80% degradation in the real world.
Wow, so the buyer just ignores the physics until the network grinds to a complete halt.
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, we've been looking at the active security tools you buy, but there's a whole other category of hidden costs baked into the infrastructure those tools run on. This is where the waste compounds silently.
Yeah, moving from active defense to the underlying architecture.
Let's examine the cloud egress cost estimator. So egress, the fee cloud providers charge when data leaves their environment, it's uniquely dangerous because it scales with traffic volume, not architectural size.
Exactly.
You can have a relatively small cloud deployment, but if it relies heavily on cross-region replication, the unbudgeted network charges can easily hit $5,000 to $20,000 a month.
And the hidden mechanism here is often interzone chatter.
What's that?
Well, modern applications are highly distributed. You might have databases in one availability zone constantly synchronizing with application servers in another.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so that internal machine-to-machine communication generates terabytes of data movement that never shows up on a standard network diagram, but it absolutely shows up on the monthly invoice.
And the tool points out that establishing private connectivity-like architectures, like AWS Direct Connect, that can mitigate those specific egress penalties by 50 to 80%.
Which is massive savings.
It is. It's a structural leak. But the one that seems most easily preventable is highlighted by the Mobility and Carrier Expense Audit. The documentation refers to this as the highest return on investment audit in all of IT.
Oh, without a doubt.
A typical mid-market organization leaks anywhere from $80,000 to $300,000 annually.
The sheer volume of dollar leakage in enterprise telecom is just staggering.
And the tool identifies these zombie lines: devices with zero data usage in over 60 days, oversized data pools, dormant Starlink hardware still active at a site that was shut down 6 months ago.
It's like a gym membership you forgot to cancel, but multiplied by 200 employees.
Yes, exactly. But I'm struggling to understand something here. If we are talking about $300,000 in free money just sitting on the table, why don't companies just do it? Is it just too boring? Or is the billing intentionally impossible to decode?
It's highly systemic. First off, a carrier invoice isn't a standard bill. It's often hundreds of pages long, filled with cryptic device identifiers, weird state surcharges, and obscure service codes.
Okay, so it's dense.
Super dense. But the deeper issue is the operational gap between departments. When an employee leaves, human resources knows. But if HR doesn't notify IT to reclaim the tablet, and IT doesn't notify finance to cancel that specific data line,
Finance just keeps paying it.
exactly, finance simply continues to pay the aggregated bill out of inertia. It falls into this jurisdictional void.
Because nobody wants to spend their week cross-referencing a $50 iPad plan against a list of employees who quit 2 years ago.
Right. But when you aggregate hundreds of those $50 leaks across a decentralized organization, it becomes a massive drain on capital.
Makes total sense. And just a quick reminder, every single one of these eye-opening tools is listed in the description of this deep dive. Go click them.
Yeah, you won't regret it.
So we see a similar overlap issue in the identity, IAM, and zero trust migration calculator. When organizations look at moving to a modern identity platform, they tend to obsess over the new per-user license cost.
Right, the sticker price.
But the tool highlights that the true savings actually come from what you finally get to turn off.
The cost of maintaining the legacy stack.
Yes. It forces you to factor in the infrastructure costs of running on-premise ADFS Active Directory Federation services, plus the separate licensing for a standalone multi-factor authentication tool like Duo.
Plus the help desk hours dedicated to all those manual password resets.
Exactly. Consolidating those disparate tools into a single unified identity platform often yields a 30 to 60% savings.
Organizations frequently double pay for capabilities just because they fear the friction of migration. You know, they'll purchase a premium unified suite, but leave their legacy point solutions running in the background.
Which totally defeats the purpose.
Exactly. Running this calculator forces procurement to finally confront that architectural redundancy.
So we've addressed the operational leaks. Let's transition to the big-ticket capital planning, because the hardware footprint hides some really severe budget shocks.
Oh yeah, This is where we move from monthly inefficiencies to massive, sudden capital expenditures.
Right, like ripping out the hardware. The SD1 versus MPLS cost comparison is a really stark example of this. For years, organizations relied on MPLS, these dedicated private circuits, to connect regional offices securely.
Sure.
The baseline math shows MPLS averaging $1,200 to $3,000 per site per month. But transitioning to SD1, which routes traffic intelligently over standard dual broadband connections, drops that cost to between $500 and $900.
That is a baseline savings of roughly 45%.
Which is huge. But I imagine network engineers push back on that, right?
Oh, always. The traditional pushback is always the edge cases. They'll say, well, we have rural manufacturing facilities that simply cannot get reliable business broadband.
But the data reveals that only impacts about 5 to 15% of an organization's total footprint. And for those specific sites, implementing an LTE or Starlink fallback connection still dramatically undercuts the legacy economics of an MPLS circuit.
It really does. But, the hardware trap that truly stands out is found in the UKS versus on-prem TCO calculator.
UKS being Unified Communications as a Service, essentially moving your corporate phone systems to the cloud.
Right. And the hidden variable here is the PBX refresh cycle.
Explain that, because legacy on-premise PBX phone systems typically require a total hardware refresh every 7 to 10 years, right?
Yes, and upgrading that physical infrastructure costs anywhere from $300 to $600 per seat.
Wait, really? So if an IT director does not know the exact installation date or age of their current on-prem phone system, it's basically a ticking time bomb of capital expenditure.
Oh, absolutely. You could just get hit with a massive bill tomorrow.
That is terrifying.
It is. And that is precisely how budgets get derailed. Traditional total cost of ownership models are often flawed because they simply compare the current monthly maintenance cost of the old system against the monthly subscription cost of the new cloud system.
Oh, I see.
So on paper, the cloud looks more expensive. But if that legacy PBX is currently 7 years old, a massive, totally unbudgeted hardware replacement is lurking right inside your 5-year planning window.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you factor in avoiding a $500 per seat replacement cost, the cloud migration becomes immediately profitable.
That is literally a physical hardware vulnerability hiding in plain sight.
It really is.
And we see a different kind of physical vulnerability mapped out in the IoT and OT risk surface mapper. OT, or operational technology, refers to the systems running physical environments, right? Like manufacturing floors, medical imaging devices, energy grids.
Yeah, it's the convergence of the digital and the physical worlds.
And the mapper tool reveals that these environments typically run 3 to 5 times more connected devices than the IT department is even aware of.
Which is wild.
We are talking about barcode scanners and HVAC controllers with 10-year life cycles, and they're often still running the factory default administrator credentials.
And the danger here is that these devices were designed for continuous uptime, not security. They cannot be easily patched or taken offline for updates.
Right.
So that mapper tool scores the risk surface so you can prioritize network segmentation. Because in an OT environment, isolating those fragile devices on their own strict network tier is often the only defense preventing a single compromised laptop from shutting down an entire production line.
Okay, so we have all this defensible data now. We've exposed the 6 FTEs needed for the SOC, the firewall throughput physics, the telecom zombie lines, and the PBX hardware traps.
We've covered a lot.
We have. But once you have the math, how do you actually fix them without getting totally overwhelmed by the market?
Well, this is where the curation philosophy of CISO Marketplace becomes highly practical, by relying on a curated catalog.
Right. They intentionally restrict their focus to 5 core architectural categories they actually understand. They totally refuse to put, like, UCOs dressed up as security.
Exactly. By focusing on those 5 pillars, they address the foundational elements of modern, resilient architecture.
And those categories are MDR and XDR for detection, SASE and SSE for secure networking, compliance and GRC, zero trust and edge security.
Right.
And rather than handing you a sprawling spreadsheet of 400 different logos, they highlight just 10 lead suppliers.
Which is such a relief.
It is incredibly relieving to see a shortlist. Let's look at how they curate managed detection and response. They don't just present 4 identical companies. They lead with eSentire, which is built around a strict 15-minute threat containment guarantee.
Nice.
But if a buyer is deeply embedded in the Microsoft ecosystem, they recommend Ontinu, which is engineered specifically to maximize Microsoft MXDR. Then they highlight CyberMax, which integrates offensive purple team methodologies.
So you can really see the mechanism of curation at work here. They are actively matching the vendor's underlying architectural philosophy to the buyer's specific operational reality.
And we see the exact same targeted approach in secure networking, AS, or Secure Access Service Edge, which essentially moves your security controls out of the physical server room and into the cloud.
Right.
They highlight Cato networks for organizations wanting a single vendor SaaS on a private backbone. For organizations needing managed SaaS, they highlight Ariaka. And for those needing SASE and MDR co-managed together, they point to open systems.
And they apply that same rigor to the remaining categories too.
Yeah, AppGate is highlighted for Zero Trust Network Access ZPNA replacing vulnerable legacy VPNs. Drata is curated for continuous compliance, automating evidence collection. And Akamai is highlighted for edge security and web application firewalls.
It's a meticulously vetted list.
It is, but I have to challenge this approach for a second. By narrowing the field this much, aren't they inherently risking missing out on some hyper-specialized niche player that might offer a unique capability? Or is the modern thesis just that proven and well-integrated always beats best of breed but isolated?
Yeah, that tension represents a major shift in cybersecurity philosophy. I mean, a decade ago, the prevailing strategy was absolutely to buy 50 different hyper-specialized best-of-breed tools and then attempt to integrate them manually.
How did that work out?
It failed entirely. It created massive alert fatigue, administrative overhead, and huge integration gaps.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the modern thesis is exactly what you said. Proven and tightly integrated always defeats best of breed, but isolated.
Makes sense.
A niche tool might be marginally better at one highly specific task, but if it requires custom engineering just to talk to your other systems, the added complexity actively degrades your overall security posture.
Because complexity is the enemy of security.
Absolutely.
Taking a step back, the overarching theme of this entire deep dive is empowerment. It's about equipping you, the buyer, with defensible math and an architectural ally before you ever have to endure a sales pitch.
It fundamentally changes the posture of procurement.
It really does. Whether you are uncovering the hidden cost of mixed asset server fleets, exposing the 65% performance drop on a firewall, or diffusing the ticking time bomb of a PBX hardware refresh.
You're no longer reacting defensively to vendor claims. You are leveraging an architectural ally to translate your environment into specific parameters, ensuring you command the data before the conversation even begins.
I want to give one final massive thanks to our sponsor, sourcing.CISOmarketplace.com. Seriously, if you open the description of this deep dive right now, you will find the direct links to all 10 of the microtools we just discussed. Running your own math takes just minutes, and it could literally prevent hundreds of thousands of dollars in hidden leaks.
It's a no-brainer. But, it leaves us with a rather disruptive consideration for the industry at large.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if automated analytical tools and independent architectural advisors continue to successfully expose all this hidden math, if they handle the technical translation and strip away the opacity before the first vendor meeting even occurs,
right?
What is the future of the traditional cybersecurity sales rep? I mean, will the aggressive, quota-driven account executive eventually become completely obsolete?
Man, now that is a structural shift worth mulling over. Next time you find yourself stuck on a vendor call trying to decode the actual total cost of ownership hidden in the fine print. Just remember, the black box is entirely optional. The math is out there. You just have to use it.